When modifying cars, there are things we buy for them that we can, easily justify spending that amount of money on. Things like a nice exhaust, a new set of wheels, an intake to amplify the induction and turbo noises of your engine. But there are also some things that we tend to either overlook or just kind of keep on the back burner because either one, they're just expensive, or two, we just don't understand why they're necessary. One of those things, unfortunately, is getting a proper tune for your car. I mean, how many times have you been browsing around on Marketplace or seeing a listing for a car that just needs a tune? So, what in the world does getting a tune actually do for your car? Is it necessary, and most of all, is it worth it? Now, before we go ahead and dive into the nitty-gritty, just a reminder that if you're currently looking for some aftermarket performance parts, a new set of wheels, maybe some coilovers or lowering springs, or just a new t-shirt or hoodie, you can mod your car at martiniworks.com. Anyway, so at this point, if you're watching this video, you are aware of the idea of tuning your car. You are kind of familiar with what it is, but maybe a little unsure of what a tune actually is and what it does. So let's talk about it. Before the introduction of electronic fuel injection and computer controls in vehicles, engines were fitted with these little things known as carburetors. Now, essentially what these were mechanical ways to control the amount of air and fuel being brought into the engine to run. Around the 1980s, electronic fuel injection and ECU systems were on their way to completely replace carbureted engines. What once needed to be adjusted manually can now be done electronically and controlled through the car's computer. The role of these computer systems is to take all of the input information provided by sensors such as throttle position, oxygen, and RPM, and provide an output solution for fuel injectors, ignition, and so on. Essentially the brain of the car, taking in information, figuring out what it needs to do with that information, and giving it a solution to the things that allow the engine to run properly. What we managed to figure out as car enthusiasts, however, is that this can be utilized for a little bit of an advantage and a little bit of our benefit and be adjusted to make more power. Back in the day with carburetors, tuning was still possible. However, it was only really possible to tune to one specific spot on the power and torque curve, which was great for peak horsepower and torque, however, leaving the rest of the graph or curve, like your low end or high end specifically, untouched. Electronic fuel injection, ECUs, and all their sensors now allowed for tuners to control things such as ignition timing, air-fuel mixture, at every spot along this graph to make it the best that it possibly could be, allowing for more balanced and optimized performance for everything from the low to the high end. When you tune a car, you're basically loading in new parameters for the computer to follow. This goes for air, goes for fuel, ignition timing, and even cam and valve timing in some cars. Adjusting these parameters allow you to find the sweet spots to make more power and torque. Getting more air in and out, adding more fuel, and igniting that mixture at the right time is what it all boils down to. Typically, there are two ways you can go about tuning a car. Nowadays, we've been blessed with things such as flash tunes and off-the-shelf tunes. Cobb access ports arguably being the most popular versions of this type of tune. These are tunes that have been pre-programmed and have a factor of safety built into them, so they can be marketed and sold to a mass audience, typically not causing any issues if they are used correctly. Now, these have become extremely popular since they are pretty much ready to go. You buy it, you get some custom things built into it if you want, depending on if you have some aftermarket parts or not. You install the tune yourself, and they're relatively cheap, especially when you compare it to the second way to tune your car, which is, of course, bringing it to a tuner at their shop and have them put it on a dyno. Going to a performance shop like this to have your car tuned typically comes with a bit of a higher cost. However, you can get better results since the tune is being specifically built for your car and any modifications that you may have. And speaking of other modifications, this brings us to our next point here. Are tunes actually necessary? Now, I've said it in the past and I'll say it again. Installing aftermarket parts on your car is great. We recommend you do it, especially when it comes to something like a new intake and exhaust. But if you want to truly unlock the full potential of those aftermarket parts as far as performance increases, you're going to want to pair them with some sort of tune. For the most part, your simple bolt-ons such as exhaust components and intakes will not require a tune per se, but when you start dealing with things like fuel, air-fuel mixtures, and especially boost, aka turbo or superchargers, you'll 100% need a tune to make sure that you don't blow the whole thing sky high. Forced induction cars benefit the most from a tune, and since the potential for turbochargers is often limited by other components of the car. Again, things like intakes and exhaust limit the amount of air coming in and going out. So when you bolt up some new parts that introduce more air or fuel, you'll need to tell the car what to do with all that. This is where your tune comes into play and what it's responsible for. Giving your car a new math equation, essentially, to plug all that information into and spitting out a new result. Getting your car tuned to a specific fuel type is also important. You may hear people say that they got a 91 or a 93 tune, or maybe they switched to an ethanol tune, something like E85 or E30 or some other blend. You will 100% need a tuning solution if you're looking to switch up the type of fuel that you're running, especially if you're switching to ethanol, as some cars do not have a built-in flex fuel capability. Going with something like E85 or a higher octane fuel does have a ton of benefits that allows your car to make more horsepower safely, but that can be a topic for another time. What we see a lot of the time is that you already spent upwards of thousands of dollars on your new performance parts for your car, and all of a sudden you're looking at like another $500 to $1,000 bill, to get your car fitted with a tune to make those parts actually work well for your car. And we get it. That kind of sucks. You already spent all the money, now you gotta spend more money. So it raises the question, is it even worth it? Short answer, absolutely. I've never met someone who's gone out and gotten their car tuned or even installed something like a flash tune for their GTI, WRX, Type R, whatever it might be, and who have been disappointed with the result. They're like, man, I really wish I wouldn't have gotten that tune for my car. It's just too good now. You'd be surprised with how much you can unlock from your car with stock parts or some aftermarket goodies installed. So even though it's gonna hurt a little bit, keep in mind that if you're looking to install some new performance parts, that you should really budget aside that little extra cash to get a tune to go along with them, because I think you'll really enjoy it more once it's done. It's also important to note that your engine isn't the only thing that you can tune. A lot of modern cars, especially with the newer automatic transmissions, have a way for their transmissions to be tuned as well. This is very common on cars like the new Supra or any high performance car fitted with automatic transmission. So with all that being said, if you're currently looking for some new performance mods for your car or a tune to go along with it, remember, you can mod your car at martiniworks.com.